During Holy Week, I had the opportunity to sit down with Andrea Thomas, co-director of the Vigil Project, for a powerful conversation about music, leadership, and mission in the Catholic Church. Andrea shares what it was like to lead worship at Adoration during last year's National Eucharistic Congress, a moment that brought thousands to their knees in prayer. We explored what the Church actually has to say about music in the liturgy and why it matters now more than ever. You'll also hear Andrea's heart for forming leaders, mentoring artists, and building teams that are faithful, excellent, and united in purpose. My name is Christian Huntley. I'm part of the leadership team here at Huntley Leadership, and I'm so excited to be your host for this episode. If you are a pastor, parish leader, or musician wondering how to elevate worship in a way that forms hearts and strengthens community, this episode is for you. Let's talk about what happens when leaders invest in beauty, not just as a luxury, but as a path to deeper discipleship.
Welcome to the Huntley Leadership Podcast, helping leaders be a positive catalyst in the people they support, the organizations they serve, and the communities they live. This podcast will make you think, laugh, and grit your teeth with new determination to make your parish or business a place of transformation, passion, and purpose. If you're still breathing, you are powered for impact.
Andrea Thomas, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Christian. I'm pumped to be here.
I'm so excited for this too. You are co-director of the Vigil Project. For anyone who may not have heard of you guys yet, can you give the audience a little bit of a sample of who you are and what you do?
Sure, absolutely. So, yes, my name is Andrea, and I was one of the founders of this group 9 years ago called the Vigil Project. And, we started out really just as a collective, and Christian, you and I were connecting on that before we began the podcast conversation here. It's just the value of collaboration and the beauty of collaboration, the power of collaboration. So really back in 2016, I collaborated with a bunch of other musicians and writers on an album because we were looking for music to journey with actually the season of Lent. So it was around this time in 2016. And we just found that we were really looking for prayer for our own devotional lives, music to bring into time that we spent in our interior life and in our everyday as we were journeying through these liturgical seasons that the Church in her great wisdom invites us to journey through. And we had a really tough time finding kind of new music for the devotional life, which is kind of where the Vigil Project is nestled, which is in the devotional space primarily. And so we are both a band and a full ministry and apostolate in the Church with a mission of making music for the Catholic journey. So we now have 10 full-length albums, I think 9 years later, and it's been a great joy. And we have kind of a second part of our mission, which is make music for the Catholic journey and also helping others in doing the same. And so we do a lot of producing and kind of putting on of different workshops and resources for other musicians to kind of fully step into their gifting as well for this, what I would call a very unique and high stakes, time in human history in the Church. It's like for a time such as this, truly, like that is so deep in my heart for music in the Church right now. I see the Holy Spirit working so powerfully here, and it's truly a privilege for us to just be a part of what He is doing, I think, across the world.
Yeah, so awesome. I love what you guys are doing. I'm a musician myself, a worship leader. I'm actually pulling inspiration from you guys do a cover of Were You There?
Yes.
You specifically. And so
Yeah.
I'm leading a Good Friday retreat coming up. I don't know exactly when this podcast will come out. Good Friday will probably have already passed, but I love what you guys do. The quality of what you guys do is amazing and inspiring. And so I'll be pulling for that for my set list coming up.
Thank you. That is so affirming to hear. That cover was from that very first project in 2016. And I remember it was a 7-song project. And I remember we wanted one song out of the 7. We wrote the other 6, but we're like, what if we did a cover of a song that people would recognize? And then I felt, of course, like honored and excited to get to do the vocal on it. So yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. So cool that we're recording this podcast.
I know. Love it.
Yeah.
Great timing.
Yeah. Awesome. What was a moment in the last year or so that reminded you of why you do what you do?
Golly. What a great question. A moment in the last year that really reminded me of why I do what I do. You know, there was a moment, there's so many, our ministry really is focused primarily for the parish. A lot of the resources that we produce are for parishes. When we do our mission tours, we primarily go to parishes, and it is so beautiful to get to bring, um, God willing, something really world class to the average Catholic parish. And we also have the great honor, really, of being invited to play on some of these larger stages, like a handful of times a year as well. And so, while that's not our primary focus, it still is something that we do. A handful of times a year, and it's a great joy when we get to. And one of the times in the last year that we did get to do that was we were invited to play the week of the National Eucharistic Congress last summer in Indianapolis. And my colleague, we were invited to play one of the evenings in Lucas Oil Stadium for Eucharistic adoration. And there was this moment where I really felt like, I don't think that God ever invites us, whether it's music or otherwise, anyone that's in a leadership position or anybody that's serving in any capacity. Like, the Lord's nature is not to use us. He doesn't use us. And the Lord is also never outdone in generosity. And so it's like when he invites us to serve and to be his hands and feet, like, there is always more that he gives back, always, like 10 times out of 10. And so we were there serving, and, it was a busy, full week. And so you had this like incredible spiritual depth and element that you couldn't not like really feel like this was a moment for the American church. Like, this is so incredible. And there's like the practical end, as a musician, you've got the gear, you've got, all the things that just make it. I was very much working that week too, right? So it's both and. And we got to play that night, that Friday evening. And I remember they asked during the procession, it was really, I think, just totally stripped down. I remember I was playing with, like, the music was really stripped down to just a guitar and a vocal. And I remember I was leading the song. There's, I don't know, 40 or 50,000 people in the stadium. And I did not know. And it was just such a cool moment where I was like, this is the right posture. And this is like the reason that we do what we do is not because I'm here to play for people, but I'm here to pray with people. And what happened was that I didn't know they were going to shut off all the lights on the stage. And they did. They shut off all the lights. So I was standing in the total darkness, and they had one light, rightfully so, like shining in the center of that stadium on the monstrance. And it was awesome because, honestly, in my humanness, I have a feeling if those lights were on me, we're distractible beings. But because I didn't, it was like I had this chance to sing to Jesus. I had a chance to sing to Jesus and to like worship him first and from my heart. There was nothing else to look at. It was like, that was it. And it was so beautiful. And then to know that, like, everybody else was looking at him too. And like, I was oriented towards the Lord. Everybody in the circular nature of that stadium was oriented toward the Lord. And we were all raising our voices in worship of him. That moment really sticks out to me as like, I'm not doing this because I'm on a stage. I'm not doing this because I'm in front of said amount of people. I'm not doing this because all the gear is really high end and all the lights are cool. Like, actually, it was such a everything was stripped, including the lighting, that all the bells and whistles were gone, and everybody was oriented toward Jesus. And I think like that was a moment that sticks out to me in the last year, that I was like, I want that etched, and I want it to stay there forever, because like, that is the posture. That is the reality of what should happen, no matter where you're playing and for whom. Like, it is for him, first and foremost.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. That's so awesome. I didn't have the privilege of being there, but Dad was there for that Congress, and it seemed to really be a special event, and God seemed like he moved in power. Um, yeah, I love that. And at that event, in our lives as Catholics,
Mm.
music is always there. And we were just talking about it before we hit record, but sometimes we treat it like a tangential piece of our faith, but
Yes.
it seems to play a bigger role than that. Just coming into worship leading myself, trying to put words around why it matters, if it matters. And so for people that are listening today,
Mm-hmm.
that are leaders in the church, who may not be able to articulate that either, like does music matter? Why does it matter?
Mm-hmm.
What's your take on that?
Yeah, it's such a good question. A lot of times, especially people that run in our circles, and you hear, a lot of theological, just kind of rhetoric that we get sort of used to hearing. And so they, in some sense, it's like, yeah, we're familiar with it. But so often we hear like God is, he's the transcendentals. He's everything good, everything true, and everything beautiful. And so man being made in the image of God, man being made like from God's own heart. We are made in beauty and for beauty. So in the same sense, in the same way, in the same reason that you and I would maybe like walk out on a beach and see a sunset and just be stopped in our tracks, we'd be stopped in our tracks because it's like that is breathtaking. What is it about that? I almost, even an atheist would stand there and say, I can't explain why. I cannot explain why, but something about this moves me. Something about this moves me. And the truth is like, and music is the same. You listen to like a beautiful piece of music and people are brought to tears, or people can't help it. They just start dancing, or you're in a bar and like Don't Stop Believing comes on. All of a sudden, like the guy next to me that I was like, worried to like brush shoulders with, I'm like cheersing a beer and like having a great time. Why is that? What is that? Is that random? No, it's not random. It's not random. There's the stuff of beauty that is there. And so because of that, like it does resonate with us down to the cellular level. It resonates with us. And what's really interesting, so we have a documentary series we've been working on called Meaning of Music that's due to release, God willing, this summer. And it's an 8-episode series on music and the life of faith. And in episode 1, we explore physics, like the physics of music and what, like physics of sound. What is sound? Where does it come from? All of these things. And nature, water, sand, these elements, they respond to sound waves, to the point that if you put sound waves like a speaker up against some of these elements, these like God-made elements like sand and water, they, depending on the frequency, it's unbelievable. We simulated it and it's incredible. There's a science called cymatics that's the study of this, but you look at it and it forms perfect pattern depending on, and the patterns shift immediately when you shift the frequency of the sound that's like being omitted onto these elements. And so like nature quite literally responds to sound. And so do we. Like, so do we as humans. And so you start from like, when people are like science and faith are opposites, that cracks me up. It is just a beautiful braid. These things just like weave together and they point to the other. And so God in his incredible genius, like we respond to music. And then you look at even just like from a history perspective, and you look at like even like the Hebrew people, you look at the Old Testament, it's dripping in music. Their liturgy is dripping in music. Their rituals are dripping in music. You look at like the Psalms and David, and he played the harp and all these things. And like for that Jesus, he brings in, he ushers in the new covenant, and to see the role of music and the role of beauty in the life of I wouldn't even just say just the Catholic or the Christian, but the human, to come to know more about the heart of God. Like it is just a gift that we can't even really begin to fully understand. But again, God in his generosity, he just like, it is just a way that we can get to know and become closer to and discover really who God is and have a relationship with him. Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Um, yeah, man, it seems like, yeah, we can't ignore that. I asked this question to one of my friends that I write with.
Mm-hmm.
His name is Joe, and I was like, why do we do this? Like, why do we do music like at mass? Why does it help us grow closer to God? All this stuff, and he said, I really do feel like it's our responsibility to write and play the soundtrack to the greatest story of all time.
Mm-hmm.
I love that so much. And one of the reasons why that's so cool is because if you go to a movie that has a great soundtrack, you almost don't even realize it. Like, it just feeds the storyline and helps you
Yeah.
enter it. But if you go to a movie with a terrible soundtrack, that's all you notice. and it pulls you away from what you're supposed to be focusing on. And I
Totally.
think sometimes in our churches and in our walk of faith, or at least in Catholic circles, when it comes to music, it can sometimes feel like a bad soundtrack,
Hmm.
and we don't give it maybe the attention that it deserves in order to help draw us closer to God, and that's
Mm.
probably very close to the heart of why you guys do what you do. But I wanted to ask you, like, what has your experience been of music in the church, maybe growing
Mm.
up or, um, yeah.
Well, you know, when they say if you need to give bad news to somebody, like sandwich it with something good. So to answer that, I'm going to start with something really hopeful. I'm going to give you something that I see as my observation, and then I'm going to give you a little
I
like,
love it.
okay,
Thank
we're
you.
going to do that.
Yeah.
So I think, first of all, I want to just say that I do feel very privileged to be working in this lane. This is the last place I wanted to be Christian. Like when I was
Mm,
pursuing music, performance was my aim. I don't even know if I told you this, that
no.
VeggieTales Live, that was my first professional gig. Did I tell you that?
Oh,
About
no,
my
that's
story?
amazing.
Yes,
That's so
I
cool.
started out studying music in Belmont University, which is a music school in Nashville, studying
Yeah.
vocal performance. Totally on a whim, I went to an audition for VeggieTales Live. It just happened to be that Belmont University was just hosting the auditions. They weren't affiliated with VeggieTales, but they were hosting the auditions. I was the last audition they listened to, like from a movie. They're taking the sign down. I'm like, can you listen to one more? Like, and so I didn't even know what I was auditioning for. I'm like, what are you guys auditioning for? It was for a 100-show stage musical tour around the United States and Canada. So I came up to your neck of the woods and they casted me and I did this tour. So I took off the spring semester and did this 100-show tour. And it was an
Wow.
incredible experience.
Yeah.
And I ended up like transferring away and ended up like, it was a whole like story of like, I really felt like God was like inviting me away from the world of music and performance. And that was a really hard thing for me. It was a huge leap of faith that made very little sense. But I knew that he was asking it of me. And that's a hard moment. And that looks different for everybody. But I feel like everybody has those moments, those inflection moments where you know that like everything past this decision is going to be life altering. And like on paper, it might look this way, but I feel like God's asking me to do this thing. Um, but I ended up doing that. And when I transferred away, and I really, really felt like music was gone, like out of my life forever as a career. And I never, ever, ever wanted to be truly, actually remember saying a prayer like, Lord, send me anywhere but the church to do music. Was it because I wasn't in my faith? No, I love my faith. I was totally a practicing Catholic at the time, but I saw very little excellence there, very little
Mm,
excellence. I saw very few people that were really serious about their craft. And it's like when you're really serious about what you do and you really want to pursue it, you tend to be drawn to other people that are also pursuing the same amount of vigor and sort of effort that you are,
mm,
because iron sharpens iron, right? Like that principle is very true. Um, but I didn't have a comprehensive view. Obviously, we didn't have the internet like we did back then. I'm 37, so like what this was in 2000 and like what is this 2005, 2006? Like I didn't know other people in the world that were necessarily doing what I was thought to be doing. But the music scene has changed a ton in 15 years.
mm.
But I will say this. Um, like the Lord knows like I had to discover in my heart something for music in the church that I did not think was there. I'm like, that's not where I want to be. He's like, oh, hang in there, honey, it actually is where you want to be. You just got to like wait for it. And so I will say now that I find myself in this lane and I find myself sort of in this like arena, so to speak, I am so Christian, I am so humbled to be here, and I am so hopeful with the amount of people and the amount of like musicians and the amount of passion that I'm seeing here, not just in the States. I mean, like, I'm seeing it all over the world of people that are being stirred in their hearts and that God is calling forward. And that's not to say that in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s, there wasn't any excellence. I'm sure there was. But when it comes to the average parish, the average Catholic parish, the average community, you know, the reality is, and now I'm getting into like that was the first sandwich. Let me go to the middle now. The
Mm.
truth is that like we have seen a decline in excellence in the last several centuries in the church. We have. I think objectively we can say that. And you can see that like centuries ago, the Catholic Church was the number one bearer in the world for artistic excellence across the board. There was music that was produced and even commissioned. Like the church was pouring resource into musicians, into architects, into sculptors, into painters, into like all of these different forms of art. why? Why did she do that? Well, because the church recognized the importance of it. And to this day, centuries later, like we see some of these masterpieces that have stood the test of time, like you were telling me that you're going to be in Europe coming up soon, right? This summer, maybe. Are you heading that way?
I forgot to tell you,
We need
I'm
to
not
talk
going to be
about
there.
this.
The
We
year
need to
that,
talk about this. We need to talk about
yeah,
this. Okay, we'll put a pin in that. I want to hear about it.
yeah,
But
that's
if
good.
you go over there, it's like you can see like all of these timeless pieces of art that are so amazing. And they also, like when you produce something that's so excellent, like what does it do? It inspires other people to step into what they're doing to produce their degree, like give themselves to the highest degree of excellence that they are able. And do we pursue excellence for the sake of excellence? Heck no. We pursue excellence because God is worthy of the highest thing. And
Mm.
so when the church, for all of those centuries, from like, my timelines are bad, but like really up, very much really up until I would say maybe the Protestant Reformation or soon thereafter, we saw a prolific amount of art, and it was incredible art. And for whatever reason, we've seen some, and again, this is not saying all, there are some people that have absolutely held that torch. And I want to just like tip my hat to those people and say, thank you. Thank you for digging your heels in and maintaining that when that hasn't been the status quo, probably in our lifetime. But, it in some sense, like, you know, we've seen that decline. And now kind of coming back to the other end of the sandwich, I again just find myself so hopeful and so like, this isn't like a human thing. It's not like, oh, humans are just deciding enough is enough. No, I really feel like God is actually revealing himself to a lot of people through music in a way right now that is so powerful. And it's almost like there's like there's like a rumbling in the ground. Like I can feel it. And I think that this is a moment for musicians and artists in the church. I'm even seeing like these Etsy shops, these Instagram artists that are like coming up with all this. I'm like, this is awesome. This is awesome. And it's a slightly overused phrase, so I sort of avoid it, but I'm going to use it for today and break my own rule. But like there's this quote new renaissance that's like kind of springing forth from the ground. And I don't know if you see that. I feel like from my perspective, and even you telling me like you're writing with these guys, you've got this song you just released, and it's like, praise be to God. Like that is so awesome. And we need more of it, you know?
Mm. Yeah, just hearing you speak to that, like, that's so inspiring for me, and I do feel that too, but I guess, we were curious if it's, like, if that's just a thing, like, where we're at, like, in our city right now, like, are we experiencing this and it's isolated? But knowing the work that you guys are doing, um, and maybe what you're seeing, you're probably more connected in the music space, than we are, and to hear you say that, that's really interesting because we do feel that as well.
Yes, and
Yeah.
that really that reality was the catalyst of what we're hosting this summer, which is our first ever, and I think the first ever international summit for Catholic musicians. And it's a 9-day pilgrimage leading up to Pentecost, and just really gathering leaders, musician leaders from across the world that are really, there's a very common heart, there's a very common desire, and it's just really, it really does. It excites me so much. And at the end of the day, it's about heaven, like at the end of the day, this is about our souls. This is about um, saying yes to what the Lord is asking of us this side of heaven, and to be faithful. And, there's obviously a great mystery to like God's permissive will and like what he allows in our lives, but to be kind of working in this space and to see the fruit of what I really believe to be a movement of the Holy Spirit. Like for me, I just feel like I'm even grateful to behold it. I'm grateful to even witness it. It's just been a really amazing, to say, I don't want to be here, Lord, send me anywhere else. And then to be like in the heart of this and just being like, wow, this is really amazing. People's hearts really are, they're coming back to him, by so
Mm.
many different means. And one of those means, make no mistake, is through music and beauty for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's played a big role in my own testimony, and I hope that for people listening right now, maybe you're feeling a little bit like I am right now, like something is hopefully something is stirring, hopefully the Spirit is moving in your heart as we talk about this stuff, and maybe some of you are wondering, like, "Okay, like, I agree, but what do I do?" Like, if I'm a
Mm.
parish leader, if I'm a priest, or if I'm a ministry leader, and I do believe that excellent music needs to play a role in what we do.
Mm.
Um, how would I even go about doing that? How would I start? You guys have a ton of resources.
Mm-hmm.
for musicians specifically. I know that you also do some consulting for pastors who want to elevate their vision for music in their parish. Um, can you maybe speak to a little bit of that? Like, what are you excited about right now? How can people get plugged into what you're doing? And
Yes. When I was coming up as a young musician, when I was like 17 and I wasn't sure if I was going to pursue music or not and keep it as a hobby or pursue something else professionally. And, music can tend to be, the starving artist thing. Like there's something to that. Like I'm not going to say it's non-existent. Although I will say I was very fortunate um, that both of my parents, they aside from my faith, I attribute my kind of pursuing of music. I credit it to them because they were both very much in my corner saying, you know, if you pursue something, like just pursue it with excellence and give it everything you've got. And like, obviously discern the best that you can and take the next right step. And I'm so glad to have had them in my corners that I could just move forward with a degree of confidence that like, I can do this. And sometimes that is the difference maker for people, for better or worse, is like one person that can say, yes, you can. Or it's like one powerful voice that says, no, you can't.
Mm.
And so I want to just say that I'm so grateful to my parents for that. And that said, though, no one in my family had ever pursued professional music or had ever really like taken music like super seriously, like in a way that even if it was a volunteer basis, they didn't ever, it wasn't like a big part of their life. And because it was such a passion of mine, it was almost like I felt like you feel it in your chest. You feel it. There's just this, like, I have to do something with this. Like, what do I do? And, I felt like, a little bit lost for a lot of my, and a knee scraping, maniac for a lot of my journey because I didn't know what I was doing. And when you don't know what you're doing, you are like ignorance on fire in so many ways, which frankly, people that are ignorant and on fire, sometimes they go longer than people that just like analyze everything to death and then like are very cautious with their steps. So
Yeah.
there's a little bit of wisdom there, I think. But I will say that like when I really probably needed and could have used a mentor, like somebody that encouraged me, first of all, to like develop myself as a person, like a human being, develop my own interior life. What does that even mean? What does it mean to have a prayer life? What does it mean to have a foundation of um, relationship with the Lord, with your life before you step out or play a note or, you step out and you do anything as a leader, as a human being? Like, what does it mean? What does your foundation look like as a person? And taking ownership of that, but then also like the honing of my craft and how to just like be the best that I could be and give the best of my offering and be pushed though in a good way. And then like, how do I give this to the world? Like those elements were just, I just didn't know what I was doing. And so I think because I felt sort of the lacking there, and I'm not alone in that. Like my colleagues that are, that I work with the Vigil Project, it's an interesting commonality with a couple of us is that we really probably needed mentorship and we didn't have mentors. And so I didn't have really anyone to reach up and out to. And I definitely didn't have anybody reaching out to me, like not that I deserved it, but, just circumstantially, I just didn't have anybody. So I think because of that, now that I think the Lord, like he uses it all for good, right? Like any challenge, anything that we come up against, it's like, even, especially the things that are painful, especially the things that we wish we could have had or would have had, and we just circumstantially didn't. I think sometimes when we like the only way through is through. And so you get through. And then when you find yourself on the other side of things and you learn these things, I think that in some sense that has given me, and I'll speak for my colleagues, us, the heart to then like let our hindsight be their foresight. Like let us spare you the time that it takes to learn some of these things, or even just like to know what questions to ask. Like everybody's got to walk their own walk. But so it's been a very interesting convergence of like personal journey, but then also this discovering of what the church is asking us to do when it comes to music, because that is what sets kind of the Catholic Church apart, right, from other denominations. It's like we do have church, we have authority that's asking of us. There's standards that the church does ask of us, and there's like the church has a lot to say about music and beauty, and so like when it comes to like the formation of musicians, like I think my heart comes from like somebody once told me like you're uniquely positioned to serve the person you once were. And so in that sense, it gives me such a heart to journey with musicians, whether they're 18 or 90, honestly. And we've had people come to our retreats, like every age in between, every genre of music, volunteer, professional, like church musician to jazz and everything in between. Gregorian chant only to contemporary music, like all of it. And I think to grow with those people and to learn from them, honestly, has been so edifying and beautiful. And with the consulting part of things, which is like, honest, like that's the micro level. The macro level, which is like what the church is asking of us, and even delving into these things myself, like there's been such a huge learning curve of the discovering of like, what does the church have to say about music and beauty? Like, what is liturgical music the same as devotional music? Okay, if it's not, what's the difference? Like, what is morally acceptable? What is morally unacceptable? And I think what you can take to the bank is anything that is highly, 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 highly contended for and attacked, i.e., music in the Catholic Church, liturgy wars are real, people's opinions are real. Like, why is that? Like, why is there so much conflict there? And I would venture to say it's because it's precious to the heart of God, and the devil wants to attack what is precious to the heart of God. And so, like, when people say things about like, if you look at the denomination that's attacked the most in the media, like not even by a little bit, by a long shot, which one is it? What's the Catholic Church? Like, Catholic Church is maligned more than any other denomination by a long shot by the media. Why? Because the enemy goes after the real thing. That's why he is threatened. He's threatened by the church. And so like, why do we find that there's so much conflict around music? Worthy conversations, by the way. But sometimes it's highly, it's contentious. And like, why is that? And I really do believe it's because it's precious to the heart of God. And I think these conversations are worth having. And I think they're worth really diving into and really understanding thoroughly. And so that's a huge piece of what we do is we do come alongside parishes and help pastors sort of implement their vision for music, and also like understand these things that are sometimes, not as accessible to understand to the average person, is like, what does the church have to say about this and how can we implement it?
Mm. Yeah, I kind of was hoping maybe we could go a little bit deeper into that. But yeah, like what have you learned about what the church is? What do they have to say about music, and
Mm.
how are you seeing that show up in how you write and
Hmm.
ministry?
Yeah. How much time do we have? No.
Yeah.
No. I will say this. I have my preferences like everybody else.
Mm,
And I think that that's okay to acknowledge. Like, we're allowed to have musical preferences, okay. I also think at the same time, the word conformity, like to conform to something, for some reason, like it's gotten like a bad rap or a negative connotation. And actually, I think that conformity is a blessing.
mm,
And I, in my own walk and journey, have definitely been challenged to maybe be open to learning some things that I previously, kind of wrote off, or I'm like, well, that's not my preference, or that's not my favorite thing, or those kinds of things. And I think like mostly without maybe getting too much into the weeds. And I think there's like certain documents that I think are really like, and maybe I can send you after the fact, Christian, just like the ones I would recommend, for people
yeah.
to read if they do want to learn more about this topic and they want to understand more about it. I primarily write for the devotional space. And so I wouldn't say that I'm a liturgical musician in the sense that I am a trained cantor. So like that's my roots, is I grew up cantoring for a Dominican parish here in Cincinnati for over a decade. So that was kind of my background. When I started writing music, I don't necessarily write for liturgy per se. I primarily write for the devotional space. Is that to say that some of the music we write in the devotional space can never be played in the liturgy? I would say no. I would think there's moments, certainly, but when you look at sort of the you know I think that, and not, I'm not saying this in a relativistic way. I'm not saying this to say, oh, it's super gray or whatever, but I am saying that I think it's really important to understand the spirit with which these things are said in these documents that the church has for like these different moments. And I think, and then once we understand that, to have a heart of, a pastoral heart, to say, okay, this is the ideal. This is what the church is asking of us in the ideal. And I think mostly what we're talking about here is the Mass. It's the source and summit moment. It's the highest moment. It's the moment that I think a lot of there's a lot of contention around this. But we look at like what the church asks of us in terms of ideals. And then we say, okay, does that mean that the pendulum has to swing like a million miles an hour like tomorrow? No, but what if we could come like one step closer to that? What if we could like implement something, to have this moment perhaps stand separate from the rest of our lives for this hour a week, or, for those of you that go to Mass every day, like at the most 7-8 hours a week, from the rest of your life, to have it look different. Because like, if you picture sort of like a mountain, this is like the image that I have, is like you look at a mountain. And so like you're journeying up to this source and summit point, this highest point, and then you're there, and then you journey back down. From an hour's perspective, like you spend a lot more time journeying up and journeying down than you do staying up there. Right. And so, for me, when it comes to my writing, I primarily feel like compelled and sort of like to give my gifting toward like the journey up and down. And that is where Catholics live their devotional life, is it's our devotional life, of our interior life outside of, it's extra liturgical, music. So, without like getting too much into the weeds, like I don't mean to like give too broad of strokes here, but, I will say I'm constantly learning, and, I've been exposed to a ton of these in these last years, especially, that, yeah, it challenged me, and it like really caused me to enter into dialogue where I just was like, I want to understand more, because like John Paul II talks about freedom, and he talks about like real freedom, and real freedom is like having the ability, like it's having the ability to do as we ought to do, not being bound by something. Because like when we like can do whatever we want to do, it's a false sense of freedom. It actually tethers us to an inability to be actually free. And that's like where the devil gets us. And so I actually think it's kind of similar with this too, is like God desires our freedom. And I want to just say that like everybody has a story, and that story is it's worth being listened to, and that people's hearts are worth being tended to, and that everybody has like a reason they feel a certain way about something. What I've discovered is that some people, like I used to think in the contention of things that it was always like, oh, it's just like, it was almost like argumentative. I don't think that anymore. I actually think most of the time it comes from people that actually have discovered something so beautiful and so awesome that they're like, this is worth protecting. This is worth like really like guarding, and then we get passionate about these things. And then sometimes like these things, they, can become combative, from time to time. So, yeah.
I love that take, because that would cause us to be curious about the people that we disagree with. Because it's like, if they've found something that's worth protecting, so much so that they're acting this way about it and protecting it,
Yes.
I don't know. What you might experience is argumentative, um, with the spirit of curiosity, could actually be a very fruitful conversation
Oh my
that
goodness.
leads you to the heart of God. And so that's so interesting how music and the way that it's used in our liturgy and in our devotional life can draw us into that conversation if we approach it like that.
Well, because like, think about it. If every piece of music was right for this, like if we could just swap music depending on the setting, like it would get weird, right? Like if I was listening to like Gregorian chant in a bar, like that's not the moment I'm after. Do you know what I mean? Like, I mean, I guess it would depend on the bar. Like maybe
Yeah, fair enough.
if Matt Fradd's doing like a Pints of Aquinas episode, that would make sense. Besides that,
Yeah.
not really. Like, music, it doesn't make sense. So if like I'm wanting a different vibe in a bar, like I want an Irish pub to be an Irish pub. You know what I'm saying? Like there's something that goes with that. Likewise, I think these different moments, like I think this is where I want to invite people, and I too feel challenged. Like I said, like I am on the journey too. Like I am constantly learning this, but it's like is every single moment of our life supposed to look and be interchangeable and be the same? Probably not. Like maybe there's these different moments, and for these different moments, there is a different appropriate kind of music to accompany it. And, the visual that I have is almost like if God came and like we were sitting at like a table together, and like God came and he delivered this massive gift and put it right in the center of the table. And like I unopened my corner and it's like chant. It's like high Gregorian chant. And I am mesmerized. Like I am mesmerized. And I'm like, this is it. Like, this is it. And you open your end and it's, let's just say contemporary Christian music. So like you've got contemporary Christian music and you open it and you're like, this is so beautiful and moving. Like, this is it, And so what's funny is I don't actually think it's like this. It's my gift or your gift. It's my corner or your corner. What if it's both and? What if we both need to continue opening this gift to see it in a holistic way? Because I got jazz to unopen here. I've got like high classical music to open here. I have like a cappella music to open here. I have, and like to see this gift as it is. And to say, my gosh, like, look at how huge this, and how like we could never experience it all in our lifetime. And yet, like with God, as all things are, there is an order to these things. And so I think in that there's an invitation maybe to discover more of like what God has intended for us with the gift of music. So that's a long-winded way of like part of what the heart and kind of the ethos of our work, but it's to help people sort of understand that better, not just for the sake of understanding it, but so that we can really like enter into a deeper prayer. And enrich in our prayer lives through this gift of music that God has given to us.
Yeah, I love that. And I love how focused and passionate you guys are about what you do. And I can speak to a little bit of what you were saying earlier about how, I guess in my corner of the world, how hard it is to find people that are doing this, that have gone through it already. Like I feel like I'm kind of like, it's a big thing, and I don't feel adequate to like tackle it on my own and to unwrap the gift on my own. Like I don't feel worthy of that. But when I speak to people like you, it helps me enter in a little bit more. And so it's so awesome you guys are doing what you're doing and providing the resources to leaders and people that do have a musical gift and a calling to maybe lead worship. You guys are there to support them, and you guys do this like all the time. This is what you do, like that's not the case for everybody. And so like I'd really, anyone listening, like go check out what the Vigil Project has going on. But what were you gonna say there?
That's so kind. Well, I was just going to say, like, I just want to echo what you're saying, because that's what we're seeing too with these musician retreats that we hold once a year in New Orleans. They're usually in the fall and they're 4 days. And this is the first year we're not having it in lieu of the summit this summer, which, by the way, there are still a few spots open for any of your listeners that are musicians and like want to check it out. I'm like actively just like, Lord, send us the right people, whoever you want in these spots. And they can literally just reach out to me. Like, I'm happy to talk through. But, one common thing every year, I mean, without fail, that we see with musicians is there is the majority, if not all, of the people that come, and I will include myself in this group, you feel like a silo. Like you feel like you're sort of alone. Like, I'm pursuing this on my own. I'm trying to learn on my own. I'm trying to unwrap this gift on my own. I'm trying to understand this. I want to be a faithful Catholic. I feel like there's a lot of red tape here. I want to do what the church is asking, but like, also I want to be like honest and like true to who I am and like, transparent and give the gift that I can. This is just hard. It's so hard. And you can't do it alone. And so like, I do think, not to like over spiritualize it here or give the devil too much credit, because I don't want to do that, but I will say a consistent tactic of the enemy is isolation. And so if you find that you're like alone, or you feel like you're alone, I want to invite people. I just want to echo what you just said. Don't be alone. Don't be alone, because there are so many people that are like you. And I would echo that for any leader out there, any leadership position out there, any leadership position out there. Like, the way that we are the most effective in our life is because we are able to, like, the Lord sent them out, not alone. They were never alone. They always had a buddy, always. And I think we can learn something from that. So I love that you said that. And I just wanted to double down and say, yes, like, whether you're like 16 or whether you're like in your 70s and or 80s or whatever, and you feel like you never really got to fully step in. I just want to say, like, if there's air in your lungs, then the Lord is not done, period. Like, I can say that definitively. That's the truth. And so, like, don't be alone. Like, truly, if it's me, if it's Christian, whoever, like, reach out to somebody, because like there is great fruit to be happened on the other end of that. I can almost guarantee it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. It reminds me, the tagline for our podcast is, if you're still breathing, you are powered for impact. And
Boom. Yes.
funniest,
Woo!
it's right. Yeah. Like it's so awesome. The funniest thing about this is that Dad recorded that like 4 years ago and really doesn't say it that much in the podcast, but it's said to our listeners every single week. And so some people will come up to him and say that and be like, oh yeah, like I forgot that I said that. I say that every
He's
single.
like, oh yeah, I guess I need to be reminded of that too. I love
Yeah.
that. I love that.
Yeah, but that's so awesome. Yeah, don't do it alone. You don't have to. And that's kind of the same heart behind why we do this podcast, right? Is because it can feel like that as a leader in the church, especially a leader who like has a heart for renewal and excellence and wants to give God the best and believes that there's more for the parish. That can be a lonely disposition in the church, or it can seem that way, but we want to get these kind of conversations out there so that leaders have a community where they can come together and be formed together and have these conversations and learn from each other and find community. So
Yeah,
I
no
love what you
doubt.
guys are doing in that sense. And I just,
No doubt.
you're leading a ministry yourself, like you're in the same boat as a lot of the people that listen to this podcast. And I'm just curious as to how that experience has been for you. What have you learned maybe about yourself through this leadership role in the Vigil Project?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. Well, I will say, and I don't say this in a falsely humble way, I say it in a heartfelt way, and it's true. And if you, I'll say when you meet the rest of my team, you'll be like, yeah, she was right. I would say if you're the sharpest person in the room, you're in the wrong room, and I feel undeserving to be working with people that on a very, very like foundational level hold me to a high degree of integrity and like pursuit of a virtuous life and a well-ordered life. I think right now when we are living frankly in like a culture that's obsessed with like progress and economy and celebrityism and how things are performing and numbers and all of these things, like that current is a strong one. And it's kind of like, but for the grace of God go I. Like no one is stronger than that. And so on their own, coming back to that idea of being alone. And so I think I feel so grateful that I have colleagues that push me to that, and hold me to that. And that's from like a leadership perspective, an integrity perspective, and also from a musical perspective, that you're pushed to be better. Not in a way that's like I'm so inadequate, but in a way that like you're motivated to be better, and to sort of not. I think it was like Mother Teresa, that I'm going to butcher this, but she had like this beautiful ideology. I think if it's her, if I'm thinking correctly, where the essence is like, don't hang your hat on the success or failure of yesterday. And so if you did something amazing, then thanks be to God. Thanks be to God. And then we have work to do today. Like today is a new day. It's not like I'm going to ride that wave because like that video crushed it. And or just like, oh my gosh, I completely screwed that up. Or, Christian, I could have you like rolling on the floor with how clumsy of a person I have been these last years. Like I'm like, you wouldn't even believe me. Like the things the things you bomb or you mess up, or that was so great in theory, train wreck, like but you know what? Experience really is the best teacher. And so that has been a huge gift, honestly. As much as I would have loved some help earlier in my career, I will say I'm grateful for the lessons I've gotten to learn. And yes, I think I have learned so much about myself. It's really funny. So I'm 37 now. I was telling you, I feel like when I was like 25, I like knew more than I did now. Like I was more confident. Like I just was like so certain at 25. And then I feel like the older I've gotten, the more I'm like, golly, like life is such a mystery, and it is, and it's also just beautiful. And of course there are things we can know and all of this, but I studied theology. That ended up being my undergraduate degree, one of the areas I studied. And so I think like to know with your mind, and then like to really know in your heart, like they say that's the longest journey, and it's true. It's true. And so I just feel like, like God in only the way that the Lord can do. And I'm sure like all of your listeners, depending on like the different areas that y'all work in and like serve in and lead in and all of this, whether you're a pastor at a parish or you're a volunteer, like any of these things, or you lead a ministry within your parish or any other area of your community, God, in only the way that he can do it, in a way that is so very mysterious to us, he does and can refine our souls through our work. Like he can put us in these positions of like, like I wish I had, I do have my Bible right here. Yes. Cause there's this, oh my gosh, heck yes. I love that I have this here. I'm really not this holy. I just like happen to have it like next to me in my purse. There's this scripture verse that has like really been with me these last 10 years, especially. And it's so precious to me. And I encourage everyone to read the entirety of Sirach chapter 2, but I'll just read you this one chunk because it's so good. And for anybody that is serving, and especially serving in a way, I think that's like that your heart is in it, and that you do give your first and your best to the Lord. So this is Sirach chapter 2. My son, if you come forward to serve the Lord, prepare yourself for temptation. Set your heart right and be steadfast, and do not be hasty in time of calamity. Cleave to him and do not depart, that you may be honored at the end of your life. Accept whatever is brought upon you, and in changes that humble you, be patient. For gold is tested in fire, and acceptable men in the furnace of humiliation. Trust in him, and he will help you. Make your way straight and hope in him. And then it kind of goes forward. And again, it's so beautiful, but there's this line also that says, consider the ancient generations and see. This is so good. Whoever trusted in the Lord and was put to shame, whoever persevered in the fear of the Lord and was forsaken. Like, he is so faithful. And like when you step forward to lead, prepare yourself for temptation, prepare yourself to be humbled, prepare yourself to be in scenarios you don't know what to do. Like, because you've come to the edge of what you know how to do. And you know what's beyond that edge? Growth is beyond that edge. And like stretching hurts. Like it hurts. Like it is not pleasant. It's not pleasant. And I think about that scene, if you've ever seen The Grinch, where it's like the Grinch heart grew 3 sizes that day. And like Jim Carrey's like clenching his chest, like, and like, why? Because his heart's like expanding. It's literally expanding and it hurts. But like St. Augustine talks about the delayed gift. And he says that like in the delayed gift, in these moments that are the crucible moment, as Sirach chapter 2 says, what happens in the delayed gift? St. Augustine says that in the delayed gift, in the waiting, in the crucible, God expands our capacity to receive the gift. So St. Augustine talks about that. And that like literally the Grinch didn't know he was theologically correct, but he was like the Grinch's heart grew 3 sizes and it hurts because it expands, but then we get to receive more of who God is. And that's the gift. That's the gift of leading. That's the gift of, like, and actually our mutual friend Mark talks a lot about this, that leadership is servant leadership. Like actual leadership is servant leadership. Like that's real leadership. It's not going first. It's like going with, and it's serving the people first that are with you. And so, and if anything, servant leadership is going last. So, so the lessons are ongoing for sure. But I just feel like compelled to say, like at the absolute end of the day, God is so good. And so it's like in the height moments, in the moments that have been really tough, and especially in the church, like bureaucracy is real. The brokenness is real. Human nature is real. I mean, anybody out there that has been in ministry for any part of time, I bet you I would put good money on the line that you've thought of quitting at some point. And like that to me is human. And the fact that you and I are still standing and we're still here and we're still marching forward, like this is a testament to grace. And that God is truly with us and he is so good and he's working through all of it. And thanks be to God for that.
Amen. Like, I was going to ask you for one final word of encouragement for leaders that are listening this far, but that's it. Like that's what we see time and time again is just the pain and the struggle of stepping into the call that God has for you,
Hmm.
like, is to be expected. Like, that is par for the course, and it's actually, like, our route to salvation, like, through the work that we do, through the work that God has called us to do. He's making us ready to receive the gifts that he has for us. And so sometimes as leaders, we can get into what we feel like God's called us to do, and it's hard, and not everyone agrees with the direction that we're taking things or the decisions that we make.
Mm.
And we're like, well, maybe it's not of God. It's like, no, that's not it. Like, there is going to be trial. It's not going to be easy, but it is going to be worth it. And I think we're seeing that anyone that's familiar with the work that you guys are doing is seeing the fruit.
Mm.
Um, yeah, and so thank you for saying all that. Thank you for having your Bible right next to you.
Thank you,
That's
Lord.
so
This is the Lord. I just literally, I swear, I'm not that good. I think it just happened to be there. It's right here in my
that's so
backpack.
perfect. That's so perfect. I love it.
No, but thank you. Thank you. I am so, it's funny. I feel like anytime I've done an interview or given a talk or anything in the last like years, it's because I need to hear it. Like I hear the own words coming out of my mouth, or I hear the questions being asked, and I feel like the Lord's like, yeah, this was primarily for you. Like you needed to hear these things.
Yeah.
And it's true. Like it's every, the discouragement and the darkness and the weirdness of the world that just seems crazier by the day. That's all very real. But just the reality that like where sin abounds, like grace abounds all the more. And I will say, like, beyond anything, I have so much hope in my heart for today, for this time in the church. And I just want to say thank you, Christian, to you, to your dad, to like what you guys are doing with the leadership podcast, for the work that you do, for the platform you give people, for the message you're giving, for the encouragement line that your dad says at the beginning of every podcast. You forgot he said, like, all of it, because like that is edifying for people. And like, let today's word be sufficient for the day. Like we also need like encouragement daily too. We do. We need like the reminder every day. And, spiritual amnesia is real. It's like, oh yeah, that's right. Like there's a battle and we're in it and it's uncomfortable sometimes. And I'm grateful for the moments of ease, but like the Lord did not promise us an easy life. In fact, he kind of promised us like, hey, prepare yourself for trial if you step forward. There, if you, by accepting me, you're going to deny the world, and then the world in turn will deny you. And so I think when we stand together, that is edifying and it's fortifying, and it allows us to kind of like give a more faithful yes. And so I think, I know your listeners will listen to this after the fact, but I just love that this is being recorded during Holy Week, because I was just on with my spiritual director like this week, and she said to me, she's like, this week is about, I wish I had the exact word, but basically this week is about we reflect on God's immeasurable love for us, like immeasurable love for us. And so like, whether you're leading or whether you're being led in a ministry, like bottom line, like it is about God's immeasurable love for us and his immeasurable love for you as an individual that he is giving you, whether or not we feel it, So I just feel really grateful to you for having me. Thank you. Like, this is such edifying conversation. If anything, I'm like, great, call me back in 5 minutes. We have a lot more to talk about.
That's awesome. That's awesome. No, thank you for saying that. Thank you for being on here. If people want to connect with the Vigil Project, how can they do that? What are you excited about that you guys have coming up?
Yeah. Any of those like social platforms, we're on there, just at the Vigil Project. Our website's thevigilproject.com. We do have that summit coming up this summer. If you're a musician or if you know a musician, we're super excited about that. That's May 30th to June 9th over in Italy. But if you go to like contact us, any of that, like it's me, it's us, like our team is tiny. So like we're very here, would absolutely love to connect in any way. So please don't hesitate. That's what we're here for.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
And maybe just one final thing. If someone's listening and has been convicted, like, man, we need to strive for excellence
Mm.
in the art that we're creating as a church, as a parish, as a ministry, whatever it is. Can you maybe paint the vision of what you see, that like what is the fruit of that? If someone decides to undergo this and really try to be great and reach out to you guys and be
Mm.
supported and find community in this, what does that look like for them, for their parish 15, 20 years down the line? Like,
I feel like we never, like my mom's always told us, like, you'll never know the souls that you help get to heaven until heaven. Like you'll never know until you get there and you get to see. And I think by stepping into your giftedness, whether it's music or whatever it is, public speaking or, accounting or whatever it is, that you're stepping into, the leadership of a pastor, stepping into like his, like letting the personality shine, as well as like just knowing that you have orthodoxy to uphold, all these things. By doing that, we become more who we are called to be. Like you become more of who you are. Like Saint Irenaeus would say, the glory of God is man fully alive. We become more ourselves in the pursuit of holiness, not less. It's not like we're like checking our personality at the door and checking the fun at the door to like be super like holy and pious. Like that's absurd. We become more integrated. We become more like the Lord, the more that we say yes to like what he's asking of us. And so I think if the Lord's knocking, I would just encourage you to be generous. Like he can never be outdone. And whether it's like the Vigil Project or whomever, it's almost like kind of a moot point in some sense. I'm like, just find people to grow with and find reach out and ask somebody to mentor you, and I had somebody tell me once too, you always have someone ahead of you, but you always have someone behind you, and you'll always have somebody at the same place as you. So like I have been challenged, and I would challenge people like if you have a mentor, to seek out a mentor if you don't have one, to seek out a mentee to give back if you don't have one. There's always someone behind you. And then seek out somebody that's your equal, that can hold you accountable. Like these three things, they serve different purposes. And then what does scripture say as far as fruitfulness? That you will know it by its fruit. You will know the fruit that comes from these measures. You'll see the fruits of the Holy Spirit. You'll see joy. You'll see peace. You'll see prayer lives deepened. You'll see these things in yourself. Like you will see the Holy Spirit. And truthfully, I think it's okay to say like, Lord, show me that this is the next right thing you're asking me to do. Let me see your hand on this. Give me peace. This is the next thing I'm supposed to do. And I truly think, Christian, that like we get so ahead of ourselves that I have to do all these steps. And I'm like, it's actually, I think God really only asks us because we're only physically able to do the next right step. And so a lot of times I think discernment is about that one thing. What is the next right step, Lord, that you're asking me to step in and step up? Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Andrea, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
To talk today. This was so much fun for me, and I'm sure our listeners feel the same way. If you're still listening at this point and you're not subscribed or following this podcast on whatever app you're on, please do so. It helps us get these conversations out there. Like we were talking about too, it's important to immerse yourself in conversations like this as often as possible. We need those reminders. We need that fuel to keep going. This is not easy work that we're doing. It's not easy work that you're doing as a listener. So yeah, hit subscribe. And thank you for everything that you're doing. We are praying for you, and we appreciate you in the work of renewal that you're doing to build the kingdom.
Thank you. And back at you, Christian. Thank you. I really appreciate it. And back at you. We can definitely pray for each other.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Yeah. So thank you so much. And to our listeners, we'll see you next time.
I want to encourage you, as you lead this week, be faithful to God and generous to others. See you next time, and remember, if you're still breathing, you are powered for impact.